Welcome to those attendees that are just now joining the webinar. You have joined session 1A entitled Experience is a Superpower, Elevating Community Health Workers Through Innovative Professional Development Solutions. Please hold on the line for a few minutes as we get started here at 2:50. There is interpretation available, and we are going to place our wonderful interpreter, Carmen Noriega, into the interpretation room now. And Carmen, if you will hold, I will promote you to the appropriate location. And for our excellent presenters, you have 40 attendees in session.
Welcome.
So glad to have each of you here.
Sunny, should we go ahead and wait a little bit longer before getting started?
Yes, please. We'll give everyone just a few more minutes. We have a couple more folks joining and they're still streaming in. So we will just a minute and a half or so.
Oh, I should have added some music, some elevator vibes. Welcome on in.
All right, presenters, we are all accounted for. We have 47 attendees in room and no further attendees streaming in. So we are good to get started.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Unity Conference of 2024 with the National Association of Community Health Workers. We're going to discuss Experience is a Superpower, Elevating CHWs Through Innovative Professional Development Solutions. I have my lovely co-host here, Kelly and Emily, who are going to introduce themselves, and I'll introduce myself and the work that I do at Pear Suite. My name is Alicia Crooks. I am a community program manager at Pear Suite. I manage the California team, and I support across really all departments when it comes to how we're designing our platform to be cohesive, equitable language to support community health workers, doulas, all the folks that do all the health education and navigation out in the community so that they can bill to Medi-Cal providers such as HealthNet, Anthem, CalViva, other different health plans we support with that work. My background is in mental health and community mental health. I've been doing a lot of work with the unhoused community in California, specifically in Los Angeles, for the last 8 years. And I just love working with adults. I love working with kids, love working with families. And that's pretty much all about me. And I'll pass it on to Kelly.
Great afternoon, everyone. I am Kelly Evans, the Community Health Worker Program Manager with the Institute for Public Health Innovation. I am that person where within my role, we cover 14 implementation sites across the state of Virginia. I consider myself to be an ecosystem builder. I am that person that will think a little bit outside of the box or color outside of the lines. And so my experience has been centered around working with varied populations. And what makes me a little more dangerous is I have an understanding of the education system, the managed care system, as well as working alongside our community health workers. So super excited to share our presentation as well as sit on this panel with Emily and Alicia. And so looking forward to answering any particular questions after our presentation, as well as super excited to have you all here on today. And I'll pass it over to Emily.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everybody. So good to be here. And I look forward to kind of hearing some of your feedback from this session as well. So my name is Emily. I am a patient advocate as well as a community health worker in Rhode Island. So I started my own company back in 2021. And I focus on helping people navigate the healthcare system. So I have a couple different branches of my business, but for the community health worker side of things, we really focus on bringing healthcare navigation services to our immigrant and refugee community here. And it's been a really awesome experience to be that independent CHW. So I have a couple CHWs that we work with people directly, and we are able to get the reimbursement and everything. So yeah, so it's been a really, really cool experience, and I have a lot of pointers, and I love to talk about the process of starting a business. So that entrepreneurial side of things is really near and dear to my heart. My background's in international education, so I have worked with different populations all over the world. So lots to share, and I look forward to, like I said, hearing your feedback as we move forward.
Thank you, ladies. So we're just going to discuss what are our learning goals and objectives here for today. CHWs are powered by their lived experience, knowledge of community resources, and ability to build trust with those they serve. This session will introduce creative ways to empower, uplift, and upskill CHWs and review the current trends on CHW certification. CHWs can continue to grow with their support of employers, industry leaders, and academic partners. We'll try to touch on many points, but our main points will be how to empower self-investment, how to foster networking and collaboration, and certification and credentialing. Before we get started, we would love to hear from you. So while you cannot unmute yourself, please introduce yourself, drop your current role down in the organization you're working with, maybe even a fun fact if you want to share. We're going to take a look at the chat. And Emily, do you want to read off some of the folks we have in the room once they come in?
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right, we've got Texas, we've got Tennessee, Minnesota, Vegas. Awesome. I'm going out to Vegas in next week. So any suggestions? Nebraska, California. Very cool. Awesome. So while people are putting in their information as well, it's so great to see how the diverse backgrounds that we have. I think that's one of the biggest strengths of CHWs, right? Is that we just come from so many different areas. So Alicia, if you would switch to the next slide, we kind of wanted to focus this session on really bringing it home and having you guys start to think about what are your superpowers, because we all have them, right? Like we all bring something different to this industry. We all bring extremely powerful backgrounds to our work as CHWs. So to focus this session, we wanted to really actually have you guys think through, what are your superpowers that you bring to the table specifically? What empowers you in your work as a CHW? What strengths or what do you pull on when times get tough, right? But also what really empowers you to keep going? And what obstacles have you experienced that make that harder? I love Jorge just posted that they run 5 miles every day. Maybe that's his superpower, right? I mean, that's an incredible experience. I would never be able to run 5 miles a day. So if you guys want to share some of those, so those thoughts in the chat as well, I'd love to hear those as well. And it'll help us understand, you know, who's in the room and what maybe we can share more specifically. Got lots of people from all over the place. This is so cool.
While we're waiting for them to share, Kelly and Emily, do you want to share some of your superpowers?
Yeah, definitely. So when I think about my superpower, I think about my ability to be a storyteller. So you know, we come into contact with so many interesting people and they all can make a difference and in our lives and then in a, you know, different way to the CHW world in general. So yeah, my superpower, I think, is my storytelling and my ability to connect people to real situations. I do a lot of work, you know, calling hospitals, calling insurance companies, calling, you know, the Medicaid office, things like that. And I pride myself on being able to get everybody to relate to the situation I'm trying to, you know, these are real people we're trying to help. It's not some abstract story. So that's what I like to think of as my superpower. And it honestly sometimes can be an obstacle too. Like when I'm just trying to when I talk a lot, I ramble and sometimes I can put my foot into my mouth. So it can be a blessing and a curse. We've got some great, a lot of people relying on stories, my patient stories, caregiver stories is crucial, Tasha. Yeah, history is so important. Strengths like mentors. So we're going to definitely be talking about mentorship today. Leading with love. I love that. Listening. That's so good. Compassion. So important. Kelly, do you want to share?
Sure. Thanks, Emily. My superpower is reflective listening. Some people call the term active listening, but I think many times we as adults are programmed to say, oh, I have an issue and here's the solution. But I think when we are allowed to journey alongside people and hear their stories, it gives them an opportunity for their voice to be heard as well as for their voice to be elevated. And so I have created something called Pass the Mic, because at first I used to say I'm a voice for the voiceless, but now I get to pass the mic to others. And I think many times when people think about communication, they think talking is more important, but listening is even more important, because then through the power of reflective listening or active listening, you have the ability to hear something that you would have never thought to ask. And so I think many times when we think about interacting with, whether it be patients or community-based organizations, or even our colleagues, there's an opportunity for us to really sit back and hear what they're actually going through, as well as being a listening ear and a trusted resource, which we all know community health workers are. And so that's my superpower, reflective listening.
Yeah, lots of compassion, empathy. I mean, these are all crucial traits that we all have to have, and to know that you possess those is a really powerful thing. So awesome. Thanks so much, everybody, for sharing. Alicia, do you want to share your strengths? Your superpower?
I can. I think my superpower is similar to everyone else's. I think being an active listener, but being calm, remaining calm and patient is key. Because whether you're dealing with outside entities, you're calling on service providers, you're trying to provide linkage to services, you're operating in a therapeutic space, you're being there to support, being patient and remaining calm is super helpful in times of crisis, in times of frustration, in times of I want my clients to exert themselves and be the anger, and I'm here. I'm ready to listen to them. I'm ready to be calm and be the safe space, hold space for them in that moment. So I think those are my superpowers I try to use and use for myself as well.
Very cool. So today, one of the first topics we wanted to talk about is empowering you to invest in yourselves. So like we said, all have these strengths, and we all are able to tap into them when we need them. But I think in terms of professional development, it's important to continue honing those skills and honing those strengths as you grow and as you have more lived experience. So we were going to talk about two different kind of categories, if you will, of ways that you can invest in yourself. So we've got soft skills and hard skills. So we'll jump into soft skills, which Kelly will talk about. And those are going to be, if you think about everything that you bring to work in the morning before you get there. So those are the personal traits that you already possess. Those are kind of the things that you bring to a role that you don't learn from within the role, if that makes sense. So Kelly, go ahead.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Emily. And so when you think about investing in yourself, I'd like for you to remember that you are the gift to your organization. As you show up daily with whatever obstacles you may be facing, but you are the gift to that organization. Whether you have lived experience, I sometimes like to use the term being a thought leader, there are opportunities for you to really grow and thrive and even command more money as a community health worker. And I think about the first that we have for our soft skills is centered around public speaking. I know many times people are trying to figure out, oh my goodness, depending upon where you're located across the country, we all know that there is an election cycle coming up. But there are opportunities for community health workers to really navigate that space around not necessarily lobbying, but the ability to provide civic engagement or community education on the role of a community health worker. Now, how do you do that? You can practice within your many coalitions. You can practice within your group settings. I know many of us tend to do outreach at community events. And sometimes it's almost a little like, well, I'm an extrovert or I'm an introvert, but how do I provide a level of public speaking to where I'm comfortable? And so I think one of the biggest things that I have utilized within public speaking was actually attending Toastmasters. Toastmasters is an organization that talks about developing and growing not just leaders, but those that can effectively communicate. And so when you think about how you communicate, some people may say, oh my goodness, I'm stuttering. Oh my goodness, I don't like to talk in front of people. But Toastmasters, and I can put it in the chat, Toastmasters is an international organization to where you can learn, grow, and thrive and locate a club that can work during your time frames. I know many of us may work a 9 to 5, or there may be opportunities in the afternoon or in the evenings or especially on the weekends to where you can hone in on your public speaking skills. The next one is leadership training. There are several opportunities through the Unity Conference, through Envision. There are through IPHI, we offer technical assistance around various trainings, as well as I believe that there are other organizations nationally that provide those type of trainings. And so when you think about, you have to see yourself as an already leader. Now, most people will say, oh, but I'm not this, or, oh, I may not be that. But you are a leader. You are a trusted person in the community. And so how do you navigate that space of showing up, which ties to your public speaking? I would suggest that as you begin to consider your public speaking and your leadership training, they are kind of one and the same, because then I want to tie into wellness and self-care. At the end of the day, we could be out here doing a lot, and I do not use the term busy. We are out here being productive, but are we taking care of ourselves by staying hydrated? Are we listening to our bodies by saying, oh, you know what? Today, I'm not going to go out and do that. I need to spend some time with my family. Do we take the time to really go out? I know it's been a little cool here in Virginia, but not sure about the temperatures across the country. Sitting outside like a flower pot for a little while without any technology, looking at the sky, watching the clouds, hearing nature, going to the playground, swinging, spending time with family and friends, eating good food. Because at the end of the day, how we care for ourselves is something that we want to model to those that we come into contact with, whether they are our patients, they're our clients, they're our members. whatever terminology you choose to use, you want to model that on behalf of those that you come into contact with, because I remember people are always saying you can't pour out what's not poured into you. So be mindful about staying hydrated, eating healthy. Now, I know sometimes, like the other day, I had to have a really good junk food moment, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get some Sour Patch Kids, I'm going to get some voodoo chips, and I'm going to get a cherry Pepsi. Sometimes if the day is hard, I like to have a strong, good Dr. Pepper, but I want you to be mindful about how you care for yourself, not doing anything that's mindful of anybody else, but how you care for you. And I know we talk about self-care and wellness a lot, but you have to take into consideration your boundaries and your expectations, because sometimes our capacity can be extended a little further, and it should not be. And then we're wondering why we have a really ongoing lingering cough, or we're wondering why we feel really tired, or we're wondering why that there are opportunities to where we may have forgotten something. And so I want you to be mindful about public speaking, leadership, and wellness and self-care, because at the end of the day, as you are growing through the stages of promotion, as well as commanding more money and taking on new projects, you want to be mindful about how your ability to show up. And so I'm gonna hand it back over to Alicia and Emily.
So yeah, so if we jump from soft skills, if you think of hard skills, so that's going to be like the training that you get. These are the things that you learn from a job, from your work. So, um, so there's a lot. I love how many things there are to keep learning as a CHW. I think it's one of those specific positions where, um, you can't stop learning. The ball will never stop rolling. We are not going to ever, what do they say, that the moss doesn't grow on a rolling stone or whatever it is. We are not people that moss grows on, because we are just constantly moving, constantly changing, constantly learning new things. So one of the best ways that we can get better, and not necessarily better, but just grow those experiences and kind of hone those superpowers, like we said, is just to grab any lived experience that you can. And again, one of CHWs are unique in that, lived experience as a human, not just necessarily in a job or something, but we can have experiences as a patient, as a caregiver, as a human being that experiences health outcomes of whatever. Those can all go into informing our work as CHWs. So that is crucial. I came into this after my mom went through a crazy long journey with brain cancer, and she's fine, she's in remission, but she is still battling all kinds of different symptoms and stuff. And so literally so much of what I've done just with my mom has informed what I do with my clients, and is really the reason I got into this. So yeah, so definitely capitalizing on our personal experiences, but also seeking out those internships. I think a lot of people say, volunteer, get internships, get clinical experience, because all of that can add to your professional development. And there's so many of those kinds of things available in this world. Educational opportunities are also crucial. So I know in Rhode Island, at least, so we have a hugely strong CHW community. And so we have the Community Health Worker Association of Rhode Island, CHWRI, and they have all kinds of different kinds of classes, trainings, different modules that you can watch. And then we also partner with a lot of the educational organizations that we have here in Rhode Island, like Brown University. Their School of Public Health does a lot of really great stuff. Our Department of Health is very active in the CHW world, so they do all kinds of trainings that we can do. And actually, some of those trainings can lend themselves to those soft skills, like Kelly was just talking about. They have great leadership trainings. They have great, how to make a PowerPoint. Those kinds of trainings are really great. And then strategic networking is so important. So when I first started out, I was so lucky to have a mentor who she follows a method, quote unquote, called the 100 Cups Academy or the 100 Cups Strategy, which you can look up. I'll throw that in the chat as well. But if you're going to grow yourself professionally, or if you have, in my instance, it was, if I'm starting a company, if I'm building some sort of project, the theory is if you talk to 100 people, if you have 100 cups of coffee with 100 different people, and if you tell them about your idea, or if you share your business model with them, or if you tell them your story, then every single person that you meet will create ripples enough that it'll send your information, your idea, your story out into the world, where you're going to get feedback and you're going to have people coming back to you. And so it's basically my entire marketing strategy is just take people out to coffee. So I haven't spent any money on like Google ads or anything like that. But I think it's just so important to build that network. And I mean, especially in Rhode Island, because it's such a small state and everybody knows everybody. It's really crucial to get your name out there, to tell people what you're doing, to tell people what you want. Like manifest is a real thing. You have to ask for what you want and put yourself out there. And to build those networks is really crucial. And I know we're going to talk more about networking in a minute here. But yeah, seeking out. Oh, and I was going to talk about technology too. We're in a really interesting space. Health equity is such a buzzword. And there is constantly new technology that CHWs can use. AI is going to be super interesting as it grows in our industry. So taking advantage of some of those will really give you an edge as a professional, I think. So that's another, I mean, personally, I'm definitely taking advantage of that. And then, yeah, Alicia, if you want to take over, I'll hand it back to you to talk about your kind of examples of this.
Yeah, so with a grant that we had recently, earlier this year in this past spring, PearSuite was able to work with the Department of Healthcare Access and Information, HCI, and we developed a training initiative for CHWs, promotoras, representatives, anyone that was in the health advocacy space, and we named that training Caring for Cal. In that training, we took our grant money, we provided free training, coaching, incentives, and we were able to pass out stipends up to $2,750 for those who are eligible by going through the different training modules. We had 2 cohorts, pretty much about like an 8-week or so course in the springtime, like late winter, early springtime into summer. And the outcomes of that, where we were able to develop skills of over 44,000 current and new home and community-based care providers. 1 million plus courses were taken, and we were able to give incentive payments up to 15,000 participants. So that's how many folks utilized our training initiative to get out the information that we need to cover when it comes to community health workers. Some of those skills that we touched on were just how to be more diverse, equitable, inclusive in your language, how to work with others, or cultural humility, cultural compassion. We talked about motivational interviewing. So if you haven't heard that term before, I'm pretty sure you use it as pretty much a soft skill and hard skill in some ways. When you're talking to your clients, your members, your patients, however you refer to your community members, and you're just asking them open-ended questions, you're doing active listening, you're being patient with them, similar to what I was saying, what we call big eyes, big ears, small mouth. You're just listening and being attentive with them. We did some other skills around health education, like how to learn what you're learning about when you're synthesizing the health information that you're getting and you're trying to convey that back to the members that you're working with. So some of those skills and trainings that we went over were beneficial. The cohort made up of various organizations, the 2 different cohorts. We built a little family in those 8 weeks together because we had to stay up late in California we worked our full-time job and we stayed up late to work together and learn and just converse until like 8, 9 p.m. at night. But we shared a lot among each other. We built a community and we were able to cross network in this space. So that's just another way that we utilize how to invest into yourself with a grant that we received, and we were able to train those skills so that they can go out into the community and keep being the great community health workers, advocates, promoters that they are. All righty.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alicia and Emily. Because when you think about pathways to career growth, have you really written out a strategy for yourself to grow and thrive? Now, some of you may say, oh my goodness, I'm gonna be a CHW until Jesus returns. That's fine and dandy. But how about there are opportunities for really you to grow into the space of maybe being a CHW researcher, or maybe doing something centered around being a CHW supervisor, or maybe becoming a CHW program manager. But if you think about your career trajectory, or as well as your career path, that's why I go back to you are the gift. And so I'm not sure if many of you all kind of write notes to yourself or utilize a notebook or write down your goals. But I think about Emily, who made a decision. She was already a natural helper, but then she thought about how she would step into the role of becoming an entrepreneur. You think about Alicia. All of our backgrounds look very different, but we still are taking on the responsibility of growing and thriving as a community health worker. And many times people will say, well, are you a community health worker or are you an ally? In my mind, I am a natural helper. Yep, I am a certified community health worker. But the thing about it was, when I was originally hired, I was hired as a CHW supervisor. Why was I hired like that? Because I already had worked with, oh, you need assistance with this? Let me link you to this. Oh, you need help with this? Let me bring you along to that. And so they saw that I had the ability to kind of be a CHW to CHWs. But how are we, when we think about, and we'll talk about this a little bit later around mentoring, but what career paths are we really considering at this day and time? And I think many times when we have gone through, I know here in the state of Virginia, as we look at I talk to our CHWs a lot around facilitation. Now, there may be an opportunity to where the regional convener will take over the meeting, but looking for co-facilitators, this ties back to your leadership. This ties back to your public speaking. This also ties back to your confidence in yourself. Now, you may say, yep, I talk well one-to-one, but in a group setting, I look a little bit different. Guess what? In 2024, we have September, October, November, December, 4 more months in the year. And I would like to challenge you to take into consideration that you step up into some roles to where you could kind of alleviate some things, because some people may be doing a million things, but how about you friendly ask, hey, can I take that off your hands and create the agenda? Hey, do you think I could expand a little bit more by stepping into this project or this role? Hey, can I be considered on taking a few more responsibilities, like reviewing the budget? You may talk with your supervisors and say, are there any considerations for a career trajectory for me? And you may use a different type of terminology, but career growth is very important. And the reason I say that is because our babies are, well, my baby is 31, but she'll always be my baby. She's my only daughter. But I think about, she started watching me and would always say to me, Mama, is this something you always wanted to do? Guess what? I've always worked in like the human services field, but what I do right now is something that I always will continue to do. And even to the level of now thinking about policy from not just the national level, but the state level and the local level. And so when I think about my career trajectory, and no, it does not have to look like my career goal or my career path, but you create it to where you want it to be. And so let's say, like I said, I want to challenge you to take into consideration, we have 4 more months into the year. by January, have you written out 2 things that you want to see yourself do in growing and determining how you will grow as a CHW? And then think about it quarterly: January, February, March, first quarter; April, May, June, second quarter; third quarter, or however you choose to break it out. But by this time next year, if you are preparing yourself to grow, you want to see yourself taking on new responsibilities. You want to see yourself having the ability to effectively listen. And one of the biggest things I want to talk about during career growth, and I know people talk about emotional intelligence, but I want us to be mindful about there is a difference between passion and anger. As CHWs, we are passionate about a lot of things. As CHWs, we are angry about a lot of things. But as you grow in leadership, there has to be a balance of passion versus anger. Now, passion is one thing that I know. As my daughter was seeking to deliver my grandson at 24 weeks and 2 days. I was passionate. But you know how I was passionate? Because I had learned through some of my career, some of the language that they were sharing within that. But if I had not been mindful about my anger and frustration with the healthcare system, because she lives in a rural area, I could have displayed anger. So I had to monitor and be mindful. And mind you, not only was I her mom, but I heard from a career pathway of being a CHW to assist her in the language that was happening. And so I want you to be mindful about the difference between passion and anger, because we have to be mindful about if you need to step back or step away, if you need to stop and breathe and collect your thoughts. But that's one of the ways I want us to be mindful about our career growth, because there could be opportunities presented before us. But then some people, if you don't have mentors in place or someone that you can actually vent to say, oh, you know what? You shouldn't have said that like that. How are we moving in this space and place? Because as we think about dreaming beyond the confines of our current industry standard, you could be the next supervisor. You could be the next director. You could be the next resource advisor. You could be the next entrepreneur owner of your own CHW programming. But how are we navigating? Because I think Emily is going to kind of share some of this as an entrepreneur. There are days that she's like, okay, somebody needs to pick up the phone and give me a response. Okay, somebody, I've went by your place, I've done this. And so there has to be a balance within your career growth. And so I want us to be mindful of that. That ties back to drinking your water, being emotionally well, being mindful of what you can do and what you can do.
So yes, so I did want to talk about entrepreneurship in our session here. So I have gotten really, really fascinating responses. And I think that there's a lot of interest in this independent CHW idea. But in general, being an entrepreneur has been incredibly satisfying and incredibly difficult. And so it's just a really interesting option that we have to us. So I think we're in kind of this new emerging field, and I like to look at CHW work and advocacy in general as this brand new industry that we are forming and molding as we speak. And so if you think about, you know, what you want your industry and what you want your field to look like, maybe the answer is starting your own response, starting your own company that is your own answer and your own solution to the problems that you're seeing. So it's not for everyone, I will absolutely say that. But it's a really cool opportunity that we have. And then I believe there's 19 states in which CHWs can get Medicaid reimbursement. And so that gives you a pretty straightforward business model. So it's not enough of a reimbursement, so you'll need other funding, but That's basically our model is we work with our Department of Health and other contracting agencies. We get reimbursement and grants from other places. I don't quote me on the 19 states, Laura, please feel free to correct me. But we do the Medicaid reimbursement for our services as well. And then, yeah, it's been just a process to get the referral mechanisms and everything else set up. But there's so much support for entrepreneurs as well, which is a really great thing. There's a ton of free small business resources. So if you ever want to talk about specifically entrepreneurship, professional development, please feel free to reach out to me after this because I love to talk about it. But yeah, we have a unique opportunity as CHWs, I think, to branch out on our own. Or you don't even have to branch out on your own. You can be kind of an independent contractor for CHW organizations. So that's another way to go about it. But yeah, there's a ton of resources out there for people who are interested in this, and you can find some really great mentorship out there as well. So yeah, it's definitely something to consider. And like Kelly was saying, it's so important to be creative, to really push what you want out into the world, and what voice needs to be heard. You really have an opportunity to create that yourself, which I think is really cool.
How to foster networking and collaborations. I don't know if you all saw in the chat. Last year was my first time attending the Unity Conference, and my colleagues were like, wait, what? I said to them, listen, I know we all work virtually. I can call you on the phone. I can see you. But when I came to Austin, Texas, oh my goodness, I got to meet so many people across the country, and then going to look at the poster sessions, going to walk around. And so people were kind of thinking, is she strange? No. In my mind, it was an opportunity to learn and grow and bring those resources back potentially to the state of Virginia. Because as we think about how we network and how we collaborate, is like, oh my God. And some people be like, well, look, Kelly, we know you a little excited, and we know that's not how I operate. But guess what? You do what works best for you. But as I walked around and got to hear that people were hospice CHWs, or got to hear that people were doing CHW work in public housing, or got to hear the various populations or the various considerations. And so I am the type of person that, and my friends know this, and it was like, you should teach a class. I was like, listen, I will work a room. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to go introduce myself. If I don't have a business card, I'm going to say, hey, are you on LinkedIn? Let's connect that way. And so I think it's so important as you think about networking and collaboration. The slide has switched when we think about our elevator pitch, mentorship, and working across disciplines. Okay, so many times we may think we don't have a lot to share with people, but the elevator pitch is something that has to be taken into consideration. So when you think about what you will do in the short length of time that you go from floor to floor in an elevator, do you have 3 things that you can share with somebody to where before they step off the elevator, it's an opportunity for them to say, hey, I want to hear more about what you're talking about. Here's my business card. Along with not only the elevator pitch, do you have the ability to follow up? Because many times we'll meet lots of people, and I tell people this when I open up conferences as well, do not come and get business cards and don't follow up. Because at the end of the day, we will stick stuff in our bags and stick it in the trunk or stick it in the closet and never look at it again until we start cleaning out stuff. But I want us to be mindful about utilizing elevator pitching. Yep, it talks about starting with a hook, highlight your value, and then end with a call to action. Because you only have a short period of time, again, going from floor to floor. Again, on here, we talk about Toastmasters International. I put that in the chat. As we think about, you can find a club. Now, I want you to know your organization may be willing to pay for you to join Toastmasters, but it's normally $120 a year or $60 one quarter and $60 a second quarter. And so I want you to be mindful, but you got to think about investing in yourself. Stretch yourself a little bit. Say, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to take a chance, even if nobody else is doing it. Do it alone. And as you've heard my colleagues talk about creating that family and creating that network, when you join Toastmasters, it's a family environment. Depending upon the type of club that it is, whether it's open or closed. I know some corporate clubs may be closed, but many clubs, whether it's faith-based, whether it's a community-based organization, it could be a project management club, and you're considering maybe becoming a project manager within being a program manager as a career trajectory. And so Toastmasters is something I highly recommend. But when you think about your elevator pitch, do you have one currently? And most people will say, no, I really don't. And what would I say? Listen, there are plenty of ways for you to kind of, like, Google is everybody's friend. And now I feel like there are other search engines where you can look up an elevator pitch. It can be short, succinct, and to the point. And so as it's shown on the screen, start with a hook, highlight your value, and end with a call to action. And so when you take these things into consideration and you do it one time, oh, the more you start doing it, it's like riding a bike. It becomes habit. And so no matter where you are, if you're in a coffee shop, if you're in purchasing groceries, if you are in pumping gas, and you are looking and somebody's saying, you know what, I need some assistance. Is your elevator pitch ready? Next slide. So when you think about, oh, wait a minute, let me make sure. When you think about, Emily, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Sure, I can definitely jump in on mentorship. So, as I mentioned, I was able to find an incredible mentor who, we love the story. We were at a conference, not the Unity conference, but we were in a different conference, and I asked to borrow her laptop charger, and we ended up talking in the lobby of the conference for like an hour, and then she ended up hiring me, and it was love at first sight. We like to joke, but there's so many ways of finding a mentor, and there's so many great, like I said, there's so many great supportive organizations out there. I think the biggest thing is that you need to be open to it. So if you see someone that you think might be able to offer you those experiences, ask for it. Don't be afraid to ask for, like I said before, ask for what you want, put out there what you want to see from the world, and just see what happens. So some of the things that my mentor has given, I mean, she offers everything from, and of course, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work with so many people, but you can get everything from, you know, contracts or examples of, documents or, software, like how do you track your time, things like that, those kinds of advice, all the way to, how do I tackle this really complicated relationship, or what would you do in this situation? There's so many things like that. So my relationship with her was very kind of off the books, off the record. It was very organic. But yes, like I mentioned, I met her at a conference, and these things are crucial. And so, if I'm going to a conference, I know that I am going to be dead tired. I am going to be feet to the ground that entire time, because you want to take advantage of every second while you're there, to meet those people, because you never know what one conversation is going to bring you. I've met people in the airport where I gave them my card at the gate, and then they ended up reaching out, and I signed some big contracts that way. So you should always, always be putting yourself out into the world. LinkedIn is a huge platform now. I think, I don't know, social media is like always changing. LinkedIn, I think, used to be pretty lame, but it's actually like really stepping up. And from what I hear, I mean, I just went to a networking class, and LinkedIn is truly the number one these days. A lot of people use it constantly. So keep an eye on your messaging, the message box, which sometimes doesn't pop up, but that's a really great way to meet people. And then, yeah, as CHWs, of course, like we're talking about today, our lived experience is our superpower, and you can always learn from someone else's lived experience. So, if you're part of your local CHW organizations or even like public health associations, if you ever take one of those classes, so say you go to a university or some organization, go up to the teacher afterward and ask if they'd be willing to go get coffee with you. And it's really that simple as, you ask them just to meet up offline or in some other location, coffee, even a Zoom. And you can really, like I said, you never know how those one conversations are going to go. And then I would also say follow-up is really important. So if you do reach out to someone and you don't ever hear from them, please don't ever assume that it's your fault or that you don't take it personally, because people are busy. I miss texts all the time. I miss emails. They slip through my fingers. So I really appreciate it when people do follow up, and say, hey, we met at that one thing, and you'd mentioned that you get coffee. Like, let's get something on the calendar. So those are all just there's really good tips, I think. How we doing on time, guys? We have 15 minutes left. All right, perfect. So I also wanted to talk about how it is important to work across disciplines. So as CHWs, we really touch people in a lot of ways. And one of our big job responsibilities is to build bridges, right? Like a lot of people said that was your strength, is the empathy, is connecting, is building those bridges. And in order to do that, we need to be able to work with people from all different backgrounds. So in my day-to-day, I work with doctors, healthcare professionals, dentists, physical therapists, all of those, but then also different social services. We have a huge network of nonprofits in Rhode Island, and they all offer different resources. So to have that kind of Rolodex and know what's available is a huge superpower for CHWs. Knowing who is available, what kind of education opportunities are available for you is really crucial. And it does really create this holistic understanding. So in order for us to give a holistic picture for our clients, it's important for us to know what's going on in kind of all these different corners. So yeah, some opportunities to actually do that and get that lived experience. You can go to those networks, again, are really crucial. So going to different professional events, if you see an article or hear a podcast interview or just meet somebody that you think is interesting, try and find their contact information and just send them a quick email. Is a really great opportunity to connect, and people love to hear from you too. There's a lot of really cool interdisciplinary meetings that go on in our neck of the woods. And also online as well. So I'm part of really interesting patient safety boards that talk about patient safety. Senior advising is a huge area. Lots of different kind of niche aspects of what we do, like housing crisis response teams. Political advocacy is a really big thing that we do. We do a lot of legislative advocacy, or we want to do a lot of legislative advocacy. And so we're constantly paying attention to, press conferences, different opportunities at our state house, and different hearings as well. We've testified at a couple Senate hearings for different bills that are being discussed. So that's a really interesting way to learn about what's going on. And then going back to the training, you just can't get enough training as a CHW. I think that's pretty crucial.
All right, thank you for sharing that. We're going to jump to just ahead because I know we're getting short on time and we want to open it up for Q&A. But I'm going to quickly touch on certification and credentialing and what obstacles you may face in this process as a CHW. And one big Q&A question we want to open up to the group is, how do you feel about mandatory credentialing in your state? So when it comes to obstacles, there's two types, right? There's the personal and there's the professional that can occur when you're on your pursuit, growing yourself in the CHW work, or just in the CHW industry field in general. Some personal obstacles could be the work-life balance. Earlier, you heard Kelly talk about wellness and self-care. Work-life balance is crucial to being a CHW. If you're working primarily as a CHW in the healthcare industry, you know how a lot of crisis or healthcare, mental health, any behavioral health crises can occur. You're hearing a lot of trauma. You're receiving a lot of feedback. You're hearing a lot of, and you can experience some vicarious trauma from hearing trauma at the same time. Because of that, you have to develop your own boundaries and you have to develop some work-life balance. So that could look like setting boundaries at work for yourself about the time of day when you're done working, you're done with calls, and when you're starting your day. That can look like setting boundaries with your clients, making sure that you're only taking their calls at a certain time so that you can focus on getting work done or doing your notes. That could look like taking a vacation. That could look like prioritizing self-care, as we mentioned earlier. This can help you maintain a steady, I would say, a steady flow of work-life balance when you're a compassionate, open, patient, caring person, all those superpowers that you all put in the chat. You have to have boundaries for yourself so that you're able to still do the work and maintain your own personal life. Some of those obstacles personally can be cultural boundaries, managing and understanding cultural differences when you're working with diverse populations of people. So diverse and cultural differences aren't always racially or ethnically based. It could be language based, it could be their lived experience. So if you're working in an justice involved community, if you're working with communities that have experienced domestic violence, if you're working with communities that are LGBTQIA, if you're working with communities that in the whole focus is on trauma-based experiences, veterans, things like that, those having an understanding of what they're experiencing and having an understanding of how that could affect you, hearing those experiences can also be an obstacle as well in the work that you're doing. Maybe there's some implicit bias that you may have about working with the unhoused community or working with recently incarcerated folks that you're unaware of. Maybe you've had experiences in your personal life with your own family members or friends, and now you're working with community members that have experiences that's reminding you of them. And that's coming up in the work that you're doing. That can be an obstacle. So just maintaining a constant flow of checking in with yourself, having a supervisor that you can speak to, a mentor, as we brought up, that you can talk to about what's occurring for you and how it's affecting your work and how it's affecting your life in some impactful way. When it comes to professional obstacles, we're going to touch on credentialing, but I put here limited career advancement and resistance from the community. I think one thing about a community health worker is that you can pretty much phrase us all over the place, but the general term that the umbrella term now that we're pushed under is community health worker. But that can mean you're a promotora, you're a community health advocate, you're a patient advocate, you're a health advocate, you're a family advocate, you're a health navigator, you're a care navigator. All of those things, you're helping folks in the community digest all the professional experiences, medical, mental, behavioral, even employment opportunities that are out there. You're helping them digest this information and how to move and navigate through that world. While this is a prominent and important position in our society, there are some limited career advancements really for us to see, like, how can we move and grow income-wise? How can we move and grow our title? How can we move and grow in this professional field as a whole? And those obstacles can be hard to navigate and really see, oh, does this title, does this position, do these career experiences on this job description line up with what I'm doing? And I bet it does. So sometimes the the direct advancement, seeing it underneath a community health worker, supervisor, manager, program manager, whatever, it's hard to always see, but there are some career advancements that we can figure out together through mentorship and through reaching out and networking with other folks to see, hey, I checked out this job description. Does it sound like something we do at our organization? Does it sound like something I do as a community health worker? Can you help me build my resume in this space, because I see this as an opportunity for me to advance in my career? Resistance from the community. So sometimes working with your community members can be an added struggle. So I would say I put this down here because when you're working with folks that have had a lot of traumatic experiences in their life and you're meeting them at their lowest and you're trying to help them navigate, maybe not even to get to a baseline, but just to navigate in that space, you can get a lot of resistance. That resistance can come from them just not trusting anyone. They have a lack of trust in anyone at all. They have a lack of trust in professionals. They have a lack of trust in the system because a lot of the institutions that they've worked with have failed them. So some of that can be a professional obstacle while you're working in this field. And through training, through having great supervision, through networking, you can gain feedback from a lot of folks and see, hey, I'm facing this with this type of person based on this experience. What's the best way to navigate what they're going through? Credentialing, some of the obstacles that we face when it comes to credentialing across states. Some states have a lack of standardization. Some states have certification costs. Some states have limited recognitions when it comes to CHWs, and some states have complex requirements. Community health work is the baseline is lived experience. We are the experts in the field, in the space that we're working in that community health space. The lived experience, whether you were recently incarcerated or incarcerated in the past, if you have experienced any health condition, any severe health conditions, if you're disabled, if you are just living in a multicultural skin in your multicultural complexities of who you are, we have this experience that's even better than education, right? Because we know how to talk to community members that look like us and have went through experiences similar to our own. But because it's hard to standardize that, I believe that the institutions, the powers that be, are trying to find ways like, well, how can we maximize or make money or really move this career field? And some states have put, I would say, barriers in place when it comes to community health work and the opportunities for us to grow in that space. So I want to open this up to this group question and have some group feedback. How do you all feel about mandatory credentialing in your state? I know you all shared where you're from. We had some Tennessee, Kentucky, we have Rhode Island, Virginia. I'm in California, so I'm pretty well versed in what's happening in California. We have Nevada here, Ohio, Vermont. How do you feel about any mandatory credentialing that may be taking place in your state as a community health worker? So that means not only will your lived experience count, but now they're asking for you to go back to school or have some type of schooling or take some type of test and pass that test and pay for all of this. So this is all not, this wouldn't be free. So maybe your state is asking you to pay into credentialing in your state, and lived experience isn't enough. So please share your feedback on how you feel. You prefer voluntary. Lori from Tennessee, you prefer voluntary, okay?
Jorge posted, it can only help and support the work we do.
Yes, it could. It could. There are different. In Vermont, there are differing opinions with concerns about schooling and testing, with sometimes experience is all that matters. True. One thing that I like to advocate for is the organizations that you're working for, whether they're nonprofit or for-profit organizations, if they have any opportunities to pay for your credentialing, if they have any funding opportunities they're offering with 6 months to a year or 2 years of employment, they pay for some type of professional upskilling. They pay for some credentialing so that you can grow in this field. Defining the role is what will support the profession. Is certification the only way? Right. In Minnesota, is that MN? We have grants available for folks who want to attain CHW classes. Lovely. So some states have grants out there. I just spoke about Caring for Cal. That was a grant that we had the opportunity to spearhead at Pear Suite for California for training. And we don't have mandatory training in California. Washington, we have cost-free credentialing. I'm on both sides. It helps create value with service providers navigating the healthcare system. However, it can create barriers for folks' language, access, learning style. Yeah. While people are sharing their feedback on this question, I also want to open it up to Q&A. So I know you all received a lot of information. We touched on a lot of points. We talked about why mentorship is important. We talked about pitching yourself and how to potentially pitch yourself in spaces when you're networking. We talked about how to engage folks and re-engage folks that you may have met in conferences, across organizations, online, through LinkedIn, even Instagram can be used in that space. Reaching out and reaching out to folks so that you can grow in your profession and your field. This field is so important in the work that we're doing. I'd like to think that we are the baseline, the backbone of making sure people really understand and know what's affecting them. We're case managers. We're doing case management, like case management, care navigation in this space, and we're linking them to services. And those services impact them. Those services change their food, change their housing. Those services impact their family system. Those services impact them having the opportunity to grow in their job, in their career field. So we touched on a lot of key points. So if you all have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat as well as we pretty much wrap up our presentation. And here at the end, as we receive your feedback and your questions, I posted our emails for you all to email us. You can find us all on LinkedIn with our lovely photos. And feel free to ask us questions there about what we presented on, or to go into further detail about various topics. Or if you're looking for a mentor, we put it out there. We're open to mentorship as well. We're open to supporting you at the best capacity that we can. Some other things that have been helpful for some of the CHWs that I have worked with in the past is outside of just upskilling and educating themselves is maintaining an understanding of where do they see themselves? Where do they see themselves in the next year? Where do they see themselves in the next couple years? Where do they want to go? And then having that top feature, and then how we can work our way down and create some SMART goals has helped a lot in growing in this community health worker field. So we have, to that question, I personally do not think it is the only way, but we do see how it could be helpful. Certification would need to allow for life experience and be flexible to be widely accepted here. And where's that, Deborah, when you say here? Karina, you're certified in California, but also have lived experience. This has definitely helped me in this line of work. It has. I know in California, through CalAIM, a program called CalAIM, they literally give you more money for your lived experience. There are certain contracts that they have put together based on, are you in the justice involved community? What experience do you have there? Have you ever been in foster care? What experience do you have there? Have you ever been unhoused at any given point? What experience do you have there? You're able to make more money. Do you speak a different language? You're able to make more money. So California definitely values and utilizes lived experience as a superpower in that space. And they try to make sure the value is shown economically and in the worth for the people that they employ.
In Rhode Island, the way they do certification, we have, there's like I think a list of 7 or 8 different things that you can do, and you have to include 3 for your portfolio. So you put a portfolio together, and it can be either classes that you took, it can be lived experience, it can be leadership training, it can be internships, etc. So I think that they do a really good job here of accepting a lot of different different backgrounds, yeah, and addressing some of the concerns as well. And also they do offer a core training that you can take. It's a 70-hour training and it is free, so that's really great.
Yeah, in Virginia, we have that same format as well. There's free training through grant opportunities. And I saw someone ask, would the training be available? Would people be paid? And so that's kind of incorporated into the programming of it through IPHI, that there is opportunity for growth and development and to take the CHW training as well. And then offered CEUs after you gain the CHW training itself. And so there are plenty of opportunities. And I know, as I put in the chat, connecting with your local association, and they may have funding to pay for your recertification or your certification itself. And so look into those opportunities, because as I became certified, I realized that there were opportunities for you to really consider what classes to take. And so even if you take a CPR class, include that in your portfolio, because those add to your core trainings. And most people are like, oh my God, I got to go to school. Oh my God, I got to do this. No, there are classes that you can take that would lead into your certification or your recertification. Don't make this difficult, because I know in Virginia, we do not have a test taking strategy as of yet. And so you can get trainings upon trainings, but then some people become their own personal obstacle. Step out and do something that you are interested in growing and developing personally and professionally.
I want to also drop in like crisis intervention and maintaining work-life balance or any type of boundary setting classes that may be free at your local community college, or if someone's hosting that training online, if your organization supports with you having that training and paying for it, those are all important for this work. Spend my entire life. Is there a way to maximize on this and even be paid for being her friend? Yes, caregiving. There's so many ways you caregive. You provide health education. You might administer medication in some capacity. You may support with some type of behavioral support when you're caregiving. I'm pretty sure you can maximize it. It's really like sitting down, bringing it up, sound like a broken record, but sitting down with someone like a mentor to talk about what is your lived experience and how does this line up when you're looking at your different job descriptions? How does this line up with the career trajectory you want to move into based on what you've been through in your life? It's kind of like taking all your trauma and how can you elevate it for yourself in some way, and as you heal and move through that as well. So we are pretty much wrapped up here. Thank you all for attending our presentation. It will be lovely to see you all next year in person. Hopefully we'll be able to share more tips and tricks as we've grown in this field and in our own experience in this field, but feel free to reach out anytime. And I thought I saw someone with a hand up, but maybe that went somewhere else. But thank you so much. We will share our slides as well, too.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody. Yeah, feel free
everyone.
to email and find me on LinkedIn.
Thank you so much to our presenters. For everyone that is in this workshop, please navigate to nachwunity.org to access the B session workshops. I'll also put the information here now in the chat. And if everyone can navigate there, we will be conducting our session B here at 4:15. We will now close this webinar. Thank you all.